The ballroom doors swung open and every conversation died. Naomi stood in the entrance wearing midnight blue velvet and diamonds that caught the light like shattered glass. Isabel's champagne glass hit the ground and shattered. This was supposed to be a joke. But the woman walking toward them didn't look like anyone's joke. When Don Salvatore recognized her as the Phantom's daughter, the room exploded. When she asked Leo to dance, he took her hand without hesitation. Isabel fled, humiliated. But 3 years earlier, Naomi Laurent ran for her life. Her father's funeral was Monday. His enemies found her Tuesday. She escaped Wednesday with 4 passports and $12,000. The Phantom's daughter was supposed to die with him. That was the deal. No loose ends. No witnesses to decades of secrets. Chicago seemed far enough. She burned through identities working kitchens and hotels. Then she saw the job posting. Nanny needed. Castellano residence. Live-in. She knew the name. Knew the danger. But being invisible in a mafia boss's home was better than being hunted on the streets. But to understand how Naomi Laurent ended up in that ballroom, not as a nanny but as a queen, wearing diamonds and power like a second skin, we need to go back. Back to the day Isabel made a fatal mistake. The heavy oak doors of the penthouse library slammed shut, but the sound didn't drown out the laughter. It echoed down the hallway, sharp and piercing, like glass breaking on a tile floor. Naomi stood still, gripping the handle of her mop until her knuckles turned white. She was used to being invisible. In the sprawling, multi-million-dollar estate of the Castellano family, she was just the help. She was the shadow that picked up toys, the silent figure that wiped down counters, the woman who cared for little Matteo when his father was too busy running the city's underground. But today, the invisibility had cracked. Isabel, the woman who desperately wanted to be the next Mrs. Castellano, had finally seen her. And she had decided to play a game. Naomi stared at the object in her other hand. It was thick, heavy cardstock with gold leaf edges. An invitation. Not just any invitation, but a pass to the Crimson Rose Gala, the most exclusive, dangerous, and high-stakes event in the city. It was where the heads of the families met, where truces were made, and where enemies were buried under smiles and expensive wine. "You should come," Isabel had said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness as she sipped her iced coffee. She had leaned back on the velvet sofa, kicking her designer heels up onto the table Naomi had just polished. "Truly, Naomi. I insist. It's a masquerade. You can pretend to be one of us for a night. Wouldn't that be fun? To see how the other half lives before you have to come back and scrub their toilets?" Her friends, 3 women with surgery-perfect faces and cold eyes, had giggled. They covered their mouths, but their eyes mocked her. They knew Naomi couldn't afford a dress that would fit in. They knew she didn't know the etiquette. They were inviting her as entertainment. They wanted to see the nanny in her Sunday best, standing awkwardly in a corner, holding a cheap purse, looking lost among the sharks. Naomi had simply nodded, taken the invitation, and walked out. "Thank you, Miss Isabel," she had said. Her voice hadn't shaken. Her face hadn't crumbled. She saved that for now. She walked to the large window in the hallway. Rain was lashing against the glass, blurring the lights of Chicago below. She caught her reflection. A plain gray uniform. Hair pulled back in a tight, sensible bun. No makeup. Tired eyes. To them, she was nobody. She was a woman without a past, without a future, just a tool to keep the heir of the Castellano Empire alive and fed. But they didn't know about the box under her bed. Suddenly, the air in the hallway changed. It grew colder, heavier. The hairs on Naomi's arms stood up. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The temperature always dropped when Leo walked into a room. The boss. The Wolf of Chicago. His footsteps were silent, absorbing into the plush carpet, but his presence was loud. He stopped a few feet behind her. Naomi turned slowly, bowing her head. Mr. Castellano. Leo stood tall, his dark suit tailored to perfection, hiding the scars and the tattoos that marked his rank. His face was hard, unreadable, carved from stone. He didn't look at her. He looked at the window, at the rain. Is Matteo asleep? His voice was deep, a low rumble that vibrated in the quiet hall. Yes, sir. He went down 10 minutes ago. Leo nodded. He started to walk away, then stopped. His eyes, sharp and dark like obsidian, flicked to the invitation still clutched in her hand. He didn't ask. He just looked. Naomi instinctively tried to hide it behind her back, but it was too late. Miss Isabel gave it to me, she said quickly, hating the need to explain. It was a gesture. Leo's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew Isabel. He knew she didn't do gestures. He knew she did tests, and she did traps. Throw it away, he said coldly. That world is not for you. He didn't say it to be mean. He said it like a fact. Like saying fire burns or water is wet. He walked away, disappearing into his study. The door clicked shut. Naomi stood alone again. The insult burned in her chest. Not Isabel's insult, she expected cruelty from her. But Leo's dismissal cut deeper. That world is not for you. He thought he was protecting her. He thought she was a fragile thing that would break if she stepped into the lion's den. He looked at her and saw a nanny. A soft woman. A victim. Naomi walked to the trash chute at the end of the hall. She lifted the heavy lid. She held the gold-rimmed invitation over the dark hole. It would be so easy. Just let go. Go back to work. Keep her head down. Survive. But then she remembered the look in Isabel's eyes. The predator playing with its food. And she remembered Leo's back turning on her. She closed the lid. She didn't drop the card. She walked quickly to her small room attached to the nursery. She locked the door. She fell to her knees and reached under the bed, pulling out a dusty, black lockbox. She keyed in the code. Click. The lid popped open. Inside, there were no cleaning supplies. There were passports. 4 of them, different names, different countries. There were stacks of cash in 3 different currencies. And there was a photo. It was old, the colors fading. It showed a younger Naomi, standing straight-backed in a silk gown, shaking hands with a senator. And standing next to her, looking proud, was her father, a man known in the underworld not as a servant, but as the Phantom. A man even the Castellano family used to fear. Naomi traced the face in the photo. They forgot, she whispered to the empty room. They think I am the help. They forgot who taught them the rules of the game. She pulled out a phone. It was a burner, old and brick-like. She dialed a number she hadn't used in 5 years. It rang once. Speak, a voice rasped on the other end. It's me, Naomi said. Her voice wasn't the soft, submissive voice of the nanny anymore. It was cold steel. I need a dress. And I need the car. The vintage one. There was a long pause on the line. Then, a low chuckle. Welcome back, Phantom. When do we ride? Saturday, Naomi said, her eyes locked on her reflection in the mirror. The tired woman was gone. I have a gala to crash. Saturday night arrived with a storm. Thunder rattled the windows of the Grand Millennium Hotel, where the Crimson Rose Gala was being held. The ballroom was a sea of black ties and red silk. The air smelled of expensive perfume, roast duck, and fear. Isabel stood near the center of the room, holding a glass of champagne. She looked stunning in a silver dress that clung to her body like a second skin. She was laughing, holding court, surrounded by the wives and girlfriends of the city's most dangerous men. "I'm telling you," Isabel said, her voice carrying over the soft jazz music. "I gave it to her just to see her face. Can you imagine? The help? Walking in here? She probably thinks it's a costume party," one friend sneered. "She probably couldn't even afford the taxi ride over," another added. They clinked their glasses, reveling in their cruelty. Across the room, Leo stood in the shadows with his lieutenants. He wasn't drinking. He was watching the exits. He hated these events. They were necessary evils. He checked his watch. He wanted to go home. He wanted to check on Mateo. He wondered if the new nanny, the quiet one, was handling the storm okay. Mateo was scared of thunder. "Boss," his right-hand man, Franco, whispered. "Look." Leo frowned. "What?" "The entrance." The music didn't stop, but the conversation did. A wave of silence rolled through the room, starting at the double doors and spreading outward like ripples in a pond. Heads turned. Mouths opened. The doors swung wide. A woman stepped through. She was tall. Impossibly tall in heels that looked like weapons. She wore a dress of deep, midnight blue velvet. It was cut high on the thigh and low in the back, elegant but dangerous. It caught the light like a bruise. Around her neck sat a choker of diamonds, real ones, uncut, raw and heavy. Her hair wasn't in a bun. It was loose, a cascade of dark curls framing a face that was struck with gold dust. She wore a mask, a simple strip of black lace over her eyes, but it didn't hide her identity. It just made her terrifying. It was Naomi. But it wasn't the Naomi who scrubbed floors. This woman walked with a predatory grace. She didn't look down. She didn't shrink. She walked straight down the center of the aisle, her chin lifted, her eyes scanning the room like a general surveying a battlefield. Isabel dropped her glass. It shattered on the marble floor, spraying champagne over her silver shoes. She didn't notice. She stared, her face losing all color. "Is that?" someone whispered. "The nanny?" "No," an older man near the front muttered, his face pale. "That's not a nanny." Naomi stopped in the center of the room. She turned slowly, letting everyone see her. She wasn't hiding in a corner. She was the center of gravity. Leo stepped out of the shadows. He felt like he had been punched in the gut. He stared at the woman he saw every morning making toast. The woman he ignored. The woman he told didn't belong. She looked like she owned the building. Naomi spotted him. Her eyes locked onto his. Dark. Intense. Unafraid. She didn't bow. She didn't look away. She gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod. A challenge. Isabel recovered from her shock. Anger flushed her cheeks. This was her night. She was the future queen of this empire. She wouldn't let the help upstage her. She marched forward, her heels clicking angrily on the floor. "What do you think you're doing?" Isabel hissed, stepping into Naomi's path. "This is a private event. Did you steal that dress?" "Security." She waved her hand, looking around for the guards. "Get this trash out of here. She's just a maid." The room went deadly silent. Everyone waited. This was the moment. The humiliation. The part where the intruder gets thrown out. Naomi didn't flinch. She didn't even look at Isabel. She reached into her small clutch purse. "I said get out." Isabel screamed, grabbing Naomi's arm. Naomi moved. It was a blur. A simple twist of her wrist, a shift of weight. Isabel stumbled back, gasping, her grip broken instantly. Naomi hadn't struck her. She had just redirected her, a move that required training. Years of it. Naomi finally looked at her. "Don't touch the merchandise, Isabel," she said. Her voice was smooth, low, and carried to the back of the room. "You can't afford the bill. Who do you think you are?" Isabel shrieked, her composure gone. "You scrub floors. You are nothing." Naomi smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I scrub floors because I chose peace," she said softly. "Don't make me choose violence." From the back of the room, a heavy, booming voice laughed. An elderly man in a wheelchair was being pushed forward. It was Don Salvatore, the oldest, most feared godfather in the city. The man everyone, even Leo, bowed to. "Violence," Don Salvatore wheezed, clapping his hands slowly. "I haven't heard that tone in a decade." He rolled closer, squinting at Naomi. "I knew your father. The Phantom. He owed me a game of chess before he died." The room gasped. The Phantom. The legendary fixer who vanished 10 years ago. Naomi bowed to the old man. A perfect, traditional bow that commanded respect. "He said you cheated, Don Salvatore." The old man threw his head back and laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "He was a sore loser." "And you are his daughter? The one he hid?" "I am," Naomi said. Isabel looked between them, confused and terrified. "What? Who?" "She's a nanny." "Leo, tell them." She turned to Leo, desperate for backup. "Tell them she washes your underwear." Leo walked forward. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. He stopped in front of Naomi. He looked at her dress, her diamonds, her eyes. He saw the strength in her shoulders. He realized suddenly that the safety he thought he was providing her was a joke. She didn't need his protection. She was the one protecting his son. He looked at Isabel. "She washes my son's clothes," Leo said quietly. "Because she cares for him. Not because she has to." He turned back to Naomi. The air between them crackled. It was electric. "You have been hiding in my house," he stated. "I have been working in your house," Naomi corrected. "Why?" "Because the underground is loud," she said, glancing at the dawn. "And I wanted quiet." "But..." She glanced at Isabel, who was now trembling. "Some people don't know when to let a sleeping dog lie." Isabel was shaking. She realized she had made a fatal error. She had tried to kick a puppy and found a wolf. I didn't know," Isabel stammered, stepping back. "It was a joke." "A joke," Naomi repeated. She took a step toward Isabel. Isabel took 2 steps back. "Funny thing about jokes, Isabel," Naomi said, her voice dropping to a whisper that only the inner circle could hear. "They only work if everyone laughs. And nobody is laughing." Naomi turned her back on Isabel. It was the ultimate insult. She dismissed her completely. She looked at Leo. "May I have this dance, boss?" It was bold. It was reckless. Nannies didn't ask Mafia dons to dance. Leo stared at her. He saw the fire in her. He saw the equal he had been looking for his entire life. He reached out and took her hand. His grip was firm. Her skin was warm. "You may," he said. As he pulled her onto the dance floor, the music swelled. The crowd watched in a trance. Isabel fled, running for the exit, her silver heels clacking, her humiliation complete. On the floor, Leo pulled Naomi close. His hand rested on the velvet of her waist. "You lied to me," he murmured near her ear. "I omitted truths," she replied, matching his steps perfectly. You are dangerous. Only when provoked. And my son? Leo asked, his eyes searching hers. Was he just a cover? Naomi stopped moving. The music continued around them. She looked fierce. No. I would die for Mateo. That is the only reason I am still here. If I didn't love that boy, I would have left this city the moment your girlfriend opened her mouth. Leo nodded slowly. He believed her. He tightened his grip on her hand. She is not my girlfriend. Not anymore. They spun again. So, Leo said. The Phantom's daughter. A nanny. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow, Naomi said, looking over his shoulder at the watching crowd, seeing the fear and respect in their eyes. Tomorrow I go back to making breakfast. Unless. Unless you give me a reason to stay in this dress. Leo stopped dancing. He looked at the woman in his arms. He saw the power. He saw the partner he needed to run the empire. Burn the uniform, Leo said. Naomi smiled. This time, it was real. The next morning, the sun hit the penthouse windows. The rain was gone. Naomi walked into the kitchen. She wasn't wearing the gray uniform. She was wearing a crisp white blouse and tailored black trousers. She looked sharp. Professional. Lethal. Mateo was sitting at the table, eating cereal. Hi, Naomi, he chirped. Morning, little lion, she smiled, kissing the top of his head. Leo walked in. He stopped. He looked at her attire. He poured himself a coffee. Isabel called, he said, not looking up from his cup. She wants to apologize. She wants to come over. Naomi leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. And what did you tell her? Leo took a sip. He looked at Naomi over the rim of the mug. His eyes were dark and amused. I told her the nanny doesn't work here anymore. Naomi raised an eyebrow. Oh? Did you fire me? No, Leo set the cup down. He walked around the island until he was standing right in front of her. I promoted you. To what? Head of security, Leo said. And, perhaps a consultant on family matters. Naomi smirked. That sounds expensive. I can afford the bill, Leo replied, echoing her words from the night before. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something. It wasn't a ring. It was a key. A heavy, iron key to the private armory in the basement. The one only he had access to. He placed it on the counter between them. Welcome to the family, Naomi. Naomi looked at the key. She looked at the man who was no longer just her boss. She looked at the little boy who needed her. She picked up the key. It felt heavy. It felt right. About time, she said. Mateo looked up from his cereal, his mouth full. Does this mean Naomi stays forever? Leo and Naomi both turned to look at him. The boy's eyes were wide, hopeful. Innocent in a way this world rarely allowed. Leo glanced at Naomi. For the first time in years, something soft crossed his face. Something that wasn't calculation or strategy. Something real. Yeah, kid, Leo said quietly. She stays forever. Naomi felt her chest tighten. Not from fear. From something warmer. Something she thought she'd lost when her father died. Belonging. She walked over and ruffled Mateo's hair. Forever's a long time, little lion. You sure you can handle me? Mateo grinned, showing his missing front tooth. You're the coolest nanny ever. Even cooler than superheroes. Not a nanny anymore, Leo corrected, leaning against the counter. She's family now. Naomi turned to face him. Their eyes locked. The kitchen went quiet except for the sound of Matteo crunching his cereal. Family, Naomi repeated slowly. Testing the word. It had been so long since she'd said it and meant it. Leo nodded once. Firm. Final. Family. Outside the penthouse windows, Chicago stretched out below them. A city of steel and shadows. A city that had tried to bury her. A city that forgot who she was. But Naomi wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't the woman scrubbing floors and keeping her head down. She was the Phantom's daughter. And she was home. Franco burst through the kitchen door, his face urgent. He stopped short when he saw Naomi standing there in civilian clothes, the armory key on the counter. "Boss, we got word that the Russo family is making moves on the south side." There, he stopped mid-sentence, looking between Leo and Naomi. "Am I interrupting something?" Leo didn't look away from Naomi. "Franco, meet our new head of security." Franco's eyebrows shot up. He looked at Naomi. Really looked. Recognition dawned slowly. His face went pale. "Wait. You're the Phantom's daughter," Naomi finished. She picked up the armory key and tossed it once in her hand. "The Russo family, you said? South side?" Franco nodded, still processing. Naomi turned to Leo. "Give me 2 hours. I'll handle it." "You just got promoted," Leo said, amusement flickering in his eyes. "You don't have to prove anything." "I'm not proving anything," Naomi replied, already heading toward the door. "I'm just reminding this city why my father's name still makes people nervous." She paused at the doorway and looked back. "Oh, and Leo? When I get back, we need to talk about Matteo's security detail. It's sloppy. I counted 4 entry points that aren't being monitored." Leo's jaw tightened. Not from anger. From respect. "We'll discuss it." Naomi left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Franco stared at where she'd been standing. "Boss, that woman just walked out of here like she owns the place." Leo took another sip of his coffee. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Might have been pride. "She does," he said simply. Matteo looked up from his cereal bowl. "Daddy? Is Naomi your girlfriend now?" Leo choked on his coffee. Franco tried not to laugh. "Eat your breakfast, kid," Leo muttered, his ears turning slightly red. But as he watched the door where Naomi had disappeared, something settled in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. And maybe, just maybe, something more. 2 hours later, Naomi returned. She walked into Leo's office without knocking. Her clothes were still clean. Her hair was still perfect. But there was blood under her fingernails. Leo looked up from his desk. "The Russo problem?" "Handled," Naomi said. She pulled out a chair and sat across from him like they were equals. Because they were. They won't be making any more moves. Ever. "Did you kill anyone?" Naomi finished. "No. I don't kill unless I have to. But I made it very clear what would happen if they stepped on Castellano territory again." She leaned back in the chair. "Turns out, the Russo underboss knew my father. He got the message." Leo studied her. The woman sitting across from him wasn't the quiet nanny who made pancakes and read bedtime stories. But she wasn't a stranger either. She was both. Soft with Matteo. Steel with everyone else. Exactly what this family needed. "There's something else," Naomi said, her voice dropping lower. "While I was handling the Russos, I heard whispers. About Isabel." Leo's expression hardened. "What about her?" She's been talking to the feds. Trying to cut a deal. She knows too much about your operations, Leo. She's a liability. The room went cold. Leo's fingers drummed once on the desk. How long have you known? I suspected it for months, Naomi admitted. Why do you think I stayed? I wasn't just protecting Mateo. I was protecting you. Something flickered across Leo's face. Surprise. Gratitude. Something deeper. You've been watching my back this whole time, he said quietly. Someone had to, Naomi replied. You're too trusting. It's going to get you killed one day. Not anymore, Leo said. He stood up and walked around the desk. He stopped in front of her chair. Not with you here. Naomi looked up at him. The man who had dismissed her. Who had told her she didn't belong in his world. The man who was now looking at her like she was the most valuable thing in it. Leo, she said softly. This changes things between us. You know that, right? I know, he replied. His voice was rough. But I think things needed to change. He held out his hand. Not a boss offering a handshake. A man offering partnership. Naomi took it. His grip was strong. Steady. So what happens now? She asked. Leo pulled her to her feet. They stood close. Too close for it to be professional. Close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him. Now, Leo said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, we build an empire. Together. And anyone who tries to tear us down learns what happens when they underestimate the wrong people. Naomi smiled. That dangerous smile that made men nervous. I like the sound of that. Outside the office, Franco was talking to another lieutenant. They both went silent when Naomi walked out, Leo right behind her. Call a meeting, Leo ordered. All the family heads. Tonight. All of them, boss? Franco asked, surprised. All of them, Leo confirmed. It's time they meet their new partner. The lieutenants exchanged glances. Then they nodded and scattered to make arrangements. Naomi and Leo stood alone in the hallway. You sure about this? Naomi asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. Every family in Chicago is going to know who I am. What I am. Good, Leo said. Let them know. Let them understand that if they come for the Castellanos, they don't just answer to me anymore. They answer to the Phantom's daughter. Naomi felt something warm spread through her chest. For 10 years, she'd hidden her father's legacy. Buried it. Pretended it didn't exist. Now she was going to claim it. There's one more thing, Leo said. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Not a ring box. Something else. He opened it. Inside was a pendant. A wolf's head carved from black onyx. The symbol of the Castellano family. This belonged to my mother, Leo said quietly. She was the strongest woman I ever knew. Until I met you. He took the pendant out and clasped it around Naomi's neck. His fingers lingered on her skin for just a moment. Now everyone will know, he said. You're not just head of security. You're mine. Naomi touched the pendant. It was heavy. Real. A promise carved in stone. Yours, she repeated. Testing the word. Liking the way it sounded. Mine, Leo confirmed. His eyes were intense. Dark. Full of something that made her breath catch. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Mateo came running, his nanny, the temporary one they'd hired this morning, chasing after him. Daddy. Naomi. The boy crashed into both of their legs, hugging them at the same time. Leo bent down and scooped him up. "What's wrong, kiddo?" "Nothing's wrong," Mateo said, grinning. "I just wanted to make sure Naomi was still here. That she didn't leave." Naomi reached out and touched the boy's cheek. "I'm not going anywhere, little lion. I promise." "Good," Mateo said. Then he looked between his father and Naomi. "Are you guys going to get married now?" Leo nearly dropped him. Naomi's eyes went wide. The temporary nanny turned bright red and quickly mumbled an apology before disappearing down the hall. "Kid," Leo said, his voice strained, we're not. But Mateo just laughed. "You like each other. I can tell. You look at each other the way people do in movies. Out of the mouths of babes." Leo looked at Naomi. She looked back. And for the first time in what felt like forever, they both laughed. Real laughs. Not the cold, calculated sounds of people playing roles. But genuine, warm laughter. "Maybe someday, kid," Leo said, ruffling his son's hair. "Maybe someday." But as he said it, his eyes stayed on Naomi. And she knew he wasn't just talking to his son. That night, the meeting happened. Every major family head in Chicago gathered in the back room of Castellano's flagship restaurant. The air was thick with cigar smoke and tension. When Leo walked in with Naomi beside him, wearing the wolf pendant around her neck, the room went dead silent. "Gentlemen," Leo said, his voice carrying. "I'd like to introduce you to Naomi Laurent. Some of you may remember her father, the Phantom. She's now my head of security and my equal partner in all family operations." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some faces showed recognition. Others showed shock. Don Salvatore, the old man from the gala, chuckled from his wheelchair. "The ghost rises again. About damn time." Another family head, younger, more aggressive, stood up. "With all due respect, Castellano, we don't take orders from women. Especially not." The man never finished his sentence. Naomi moved. 1 second she was standing beside Leo. The next, she was across the table, her hand on the man's throat, pressing just hard enough to make breathing difficult but not impossible. "Finish that sentence," she whispered. "I dare you." The man's face turned purple. He tried to grab her wrist. Couldn't. Her grip was iron. "Naomi," Leo said calmly, not moving. "Let him breathe. For now." She released him. He fell back into his chair, gasping, his hand on his throat. Naomi walked back to Leo's side like nothing had happened. "Anyone else have concerns?" she asked pleasantly. Silence. "Good," Leo said. "Then we're clear. Naomi speaks with my voice. Her word is law. Any family that has a problem with that can take it up with me. Personally." No one moved. "Meeting adjourned," Leo said. The family heads filed out, most avoiding Naomi's eyes. A few nodded respectfully. Don Salvatore wheeled past her and stopped. "Your father would be proud," he said quietly. "You have his fire. But you have your own strength too. Use it wisely, child." "I will, Don Salvatore," Naomi replied, bowing her head. When everyone was gone, Leo turned to her. "That was risky." "It was necessary," Naomi corrected. "They needed to see I'm not just a pretty face wearing your pendant. They needed to know I can back up every threat I make." Leo smiled. Actually smiled. Not the cold, business smile. A real one. "You're terrifying. You know that?" "I know," Naomi said. She touched the wolf pendant around her neck. "But I'm your kind of terrifying." "Yes," Leo said softly. He stepped closer. "You are." They stood there in the empty room. Just the two of them. The sounds of the city filtering in through the windows. Chicago. Their city now. So, Naomi said. What now? Leo reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was gentle. Careful. Like she was something precious. Now, he said, we go home. We tuck Mateo in. And tomorrow, we start building something bigger than either of us ever imagined. Together, Naomi added. Together, Leo agreed. He offered her his arm. She took it. And as they walked out of the restaurant into the Chicago night, Naomi realized something. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't pretending to be small. She wasn't the invisible nanny scrubbing floors and keeping her head down. She was Naomi Laurent. Daughter of the Phantom. Partner to the Wolf of Chicago. Mother figure to a little boy who needed her. And maybe, just maybe, something more to the man walking beside her. She was exactly who she was always meant to be. And anyone who tried to make her small again would learn the same lesson Isabel learned. Some women can't be broken. They can only be awakened. And once awakened, they're unstoppable. If you believe in women who rise from the ashes, who were underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed, who refuse to stay down, who turn their pain into power and their scars into armor, subscribe to this channel for more and share this story with someone.